Welcome to Kidmissing TV. We're still in Oddities October, and this is the oddest ball of the bunch, I think. This is the case of the Sodder children. Some people will say, oh, they died in a fire, but they couldn't have, because their remains were never found, and no, they were not cremated. Fire didn't last long enough. Oh, my leg hurts so bad. So, these children were Maurice 14, Martha 12, Louis 9, Jenny 8, and Betty 5. Now the Sodders had 9 children, 3 of which escaped with them, 1 of which was away in the army, and the other 4 vanished. This was the middle of the night, Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. They were the children of George and Jenny Sodder. Jenny had been woken up 3 times that night. First, a call from a man. She heard glasses clinking and stuff in the background. I wonder if it was a call from a bar. Maybe the call didn't have anything to do with it. I'm thinking maybe it was a wrong number. Some drunk moron trying to call his wife or something. You could easily discount the first time. The second was something hit the roof and rolled off. A lot of people speculate it was a Molotov cocktail, which started the fire. Third time she woke up was from the fire. Buckle up, guys, because this is going to be a while. I have my leg elevated. Let's see. They never rebuilt the house, instead converting the site into a memorial garden to the lost children. In the 1950s, as they came to doubt that the children had perished, the family put up a billboard at the site along State Route 16 with pictures of the 5 offering a reward for information that would bring closure to the case. It remained standing until shortly after Jenny Sodder's death in 1989. There were a number of unusual circumstances before and during the fire. George disputed the Fayetteville Fire Department's finding that the blaze was electrical in origin, noting he had recently had the house rewired and inspected. George and his wife suspected arson, leading to the belief that children may have been taken by the Sicilian Mafia. Now let me explain this. It's not that far-fetched. Mr. Sodder was very vocal against Mussolini. Excuse me. And he was Italian. And that wasn't too favored. Well, specifically, not just Mussolini, but the whole fascist government. That is the billboard, by the way. Whoops. Hopefully you can, no, I'm going to put it on my side of the screen. This is hard to do, guys. There we go. Otherwise you won't see it. Down, over. There we go. Otherwise you won't see it because the poster will be over it. I've done that a few times. Okay, he was born, George Sodder was actually born in Italy. His Italian name was Giorgio Soddu. He was born in the Sardinia region in 1895. He immigrated here when he was 13. The Sodders settled in Fayetteville after living a couple of other places because it had a nice big Italian population. Actually, it was their second oldest that was in the military. They were told they could stay up late that night as long as the two oldest boys fed the cows and chickens, made sure the cows went in the barn, fed the chickens before they went to bed. So, again, the telephone rang at 12:30. She had to go all the way downstairs to answer it. Oh, it was a woman, not a man. Okay. But again, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses, she thought the same thing I did. Just a wrong number. Then the woman had a really strange laugh. About 1 a.m., she was awakened again by, the sound of an object hitting the roof and rolling off with a loud bang. And hearing nothing further, she went back to sleep. After another half hour, she woke up again, smelling smoke. When she got up again, she found the room George used for his office was on fire around the telephone line and fuse box. Jenny woke him up and in turn woke his older sons, both parents, and 4 of their children, Marion, Sylvia, John, and George Jr. escaped. They frantically yelled to the children upstairs but heard no response. George climbed the outside of the walls of the house trying to get to them. It was horrible. Death certificates were issued on December 30th, but the family questioned it, of course. And the telephone repairman said, your telephone wasn't burnt. Your line wasn't burnt. But it was cut by someone who had been willing and able to climb 14 feet, that's 4.3 meters, up the pole and reach 2 feet away from it to do so. That is weird. So their phone lines were cut. There were some sightings, and Dad chased down everyone. Evidence soon emerged, indicating, the fire had not excited. The fire was set deliberately. Duh! A bus driver saw people throwing what he described as balls of fire, so probably Molotov cocktails, at the house. One woman said she had seen the missing Sodder children. Peering out of a passing car while the house was burning. Another woman at a rest stop between Fayetteville and Charleston said she had served them breakfast the next day and noted the presence of a car with a Florida license plate in the rest stop's parking lot. The Sodders hired P.I. C.C. Tinsley from the nearby town of Gogley Bridge. You hear that name and you think, or Gogley Bridge, whatever it is. I can't help but laugh. It's not out of disrespect. It's because it sounds like a little nothing town, with a population 40 out of an old TV show or something. To look into the case, he told the family, there was an insurance salesman who had threatened George over his anti-Mussolini sentiments, had been on the coroner's jury that ruled the fire an accident. Oh my God. No remains had been found in the ashes. The coroner said he found a heart which he later packed in a metal box and secretly buried. They took what they found in the. Okay, when the minister told George and his PI went to Morris and he showed him where he buried it. They took it to a local funeral home, and whoever examining it said it was fresh beef liver that had never been exposed to fire. And he wanted to make the family believe that they died in the fire, so he buried the liver, hoping the family would find it and it would be over. Oh my God, seriously, dude. In 1949, they excavated, in August, as a matter of fact, with the help of Oscar Hunter, a Washington, D.C. based pathologist. They found human vertebrae, but the bone fragments sent to Marshall T. Newman at the Smithsonian. They were confirmed to be lumbar vertebrae, all from the same person, since blah, 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 blah. Had been 16 or 17. Newman's report said the top limit of age should be about 22, which normally fuses at 23 are still infused. This gives this age range. It's not very likely the bones were from any of the 5 missing children, since the oldest, Maurice, had been 14. And it showed no exposure to flame. So it was not. What they believe happened is that those bones, when they dug and they filled in, they just happened to dig up some old vertebrae, and that's probably true. At one point, Sodder was offered a $5,000 reward, which is insane for the time period. The site of the house, it would in time become a landmark for traffic through Fayetteville on U.S. Route 19, today's State Route 16. The family's efforts brought about another sighting of the children after the fire. Ida Crutchfield, a woman who ran a Charleston hotel, claimed to have seen the children approximately a week afterwards. I do not remember the exact date, she said in a statement. The children had Italian extraction. When she attempted to speak with the children, one of the men looked at me in a hostile manner, turned around, and began talking rapidly in Italian. Immediately, the whole party stopped talking to me. She recalled they left the hotel early the next morning. Investigators today do not, however, consider her story credible, as she had only first seen photos of the children 2 years after the fire, 5 years before she came forward. George followed up. As I said, George traveled everywhere following leads. A woman from St. Louis, Missouri claimed Martha was being held in a convent. A bar patron in Texas claimed to have overheard 2 other people making incriminating statements about a fire that happened on Christmas Eve in West Virginia. None of these proved significant. George heard later that a relative of Jenny's in Florida had children that looked similar to his. The relative had to prove the children were his own before George was satisfied. In 1967, George went to the Houston area to investigate another tip. A woman that had written to the family saying that Lewis had revealed his true identity to her one night after having too much to drink. She believed that he and Maurice were both living in Texas somewhere. However, George and his son-in-law, Grover Paxton, were unable to speak with her. Police there were able to help them find the 2 men she had indicated, but they denied being the missing sons. Paxton said years later that he doubts felt the denial linger in George's mind the rest of his life. Another letter they received brought the Sodders what they believed was the most credible evidence that at least Lewis was still alive. One day, Jenny found in the mail a letter addressed to her, postmarked Central City, Kentucky, with no return address. Inside was a picture of a young man around 30, with features strongly resembling Lewis's, who would have been in his 30s if he had survived. On the back was written, Lewis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, little boys, A 901 32 or 35. And here's the photograph. Oops, I need to put it over here. They hired another PI to go there. They were unable to locate the young man. George Sodder died in 1969. Continued to look, except for her son John, who believed his brothers and sisters had gone. That is a huge case, and I know I read a lot of it to you, and that's because it's hard to keep things in order. I didn't want to jump all over the place, you know. I knew about the sightings, the dad going all over the place. That's why I kind of put that in my own words. But I needed, you know, it in some kind of timeline. Thank you so much for joining me. Maybe someday we will find out what happened. If they still have those vertebrae, do DNA tests on them and see if they are one of them. But funeral director did tell the Sodders that it would take at least 2 hours to completely cremate body. And it would have to be between 1800 and 2000 degree fire. And neither was true, because it was only about a 45-minute fire, and there's no way it was that hot. So I know the Sodders now know in heaven what happened to their children. I hope their other children find out. Thank you so much for watching, for caring about these old cases as I do. Please subscribe if you're new. Click that bell for all notifications. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.